Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you that were concerned after last week, I'm fine, just fine. I honestly don't remember ending the last stream, but I told Boomer the next day I literally woke up the next morning still drunk. Yeah, it was a pretty good time. We'll have to do another coupling rewatch real soon. Tonight, we welcome back Z-Topia and revisit the topic of fixing the DC Cinematic Universe, a topic we started on last Geeky Geezers, link in the description, which started with the box office results for The Batman. And speaking of Batman, I told Boomer I was struggling to come up with a joke for the opening monologue this week. And without missing a beat, Boomer said, "When does Poison Ivy change her knickers?" With great fear and trepidation, I winced and said, "When, Boomer?" He replied, "When she soils them." Don't laugh at that. Netter added, "I didn't even know she wore knickers." I said, "I don't know. We'll have to ask Harley." Whoa, hey, so let's get on with it. Top off your bat drinks and buckle up for safety. Turbines to speed, and here we go. Don't laugh. No, that was not funny at all.
I think that was brilliant.
Oh, I'm sorry, Agent Boomer. You're a very funny guy. You're
Knickers.
like
Rhymes
a clown.
with,
Like you're here to amuse us. That's why
rhymes,
you're here, Agent
rhymes
Boomer.
with Snickers.
Yes, it does. Which, yeah, you're not you and you're hungry, but don't eat the knickers. I know it's getting worse and worse. So Boomer, what you sipping on?
Should I a Harvey Wallbanger? I'm kidding. I have a water next to me. I'll have.
Really? I was about to be so impressed. I was
No,
like,
you're
wow,
not impressed.
Really?
It's a water, like the lamest. Like I say that, and Troy will be like, "Oh, that's no fun." That's what he says. I might get something in the middle of the stream. We'll see. But right now, I got 2 bottles of water here, just getting myself hydrated.
Getting yourself hydrated so that you can then have an adult beverage without serious repercussions, I almost had last week. Z-Topia, what are you sipping on, my friend?
I am sipping on the hard stuff and a Coca-Cola.
A Coca-Cola. That's the hard.
Coca-Cola is nice.
Of course, it was bottled before 1890, so it's.
Well, then it could have been, yeah.
Yeah, right. Anyone want to know what I'm sipping on?
I sure do. What are you sipping on, Troy?
Release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken. The Kraken.
Well, good.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
Not the Kraken.
He only gets one.
But it's a strong one.
Well,
and
she didn't say how small the glass
Kraken
is.
and Tab.
What?
Yep, Kraken and Tab. I bought a whole bunch of cases of Tab before they took it off the shelves, specifically to mix with Kraken.
I'll bet you could probably sell some of that on the internet now.
I could, but I couldn't buy more Tab with it. It wouldn't be worth it to me.
So when the bomb drops, you'll still be set. You'll have Tab in the nuclear wasteland, right? I'm just saying. Not that I'm expecting that.
You make a good point. So Alexa, add Kraken to the shopping list.
Kraken added to your shopping list.
Thank you.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
You alcoholic, she says.
I wonder if you can find a place that makes...
Alexa, stop. Thank you.
I wonder if you can find a place that makes soft drinks for you. If there's some place that does that, and if you could get them to make you a Tab.
See,
it hasn't actually been discontinued. I just looked it up. Just some areas don't have it anymore.
Oh, so you'd be able to pull your Google foo for me to get me some fresh cans of it if necessary.
Possibly, but I'm not going to get it from Italy.
Yeah, no. It's not that crucial to me. That's why I stocked up.
You can get 1 can of Tab on eBay for $8, $10 delivery.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's not worth $18 for me.
$25 for 1 can.
So I guess you were right. The value has kind of gone up, but I just honestly, I like the taste. I think it goes really well with a dark rum like this. So that's why I do it.
I did like the old formula for Coke Zero. I thought it went really well with bourbon and rum, and the new flavor they
Honestly,
have does it
Coke
really.
Zero, even now, is still a better mixer than Diet Coke, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, Diet Coke
In
is
my
it's
opinion.
trash. I know.
Real quick, let me say hi to everybody in the chat that is willing to put up with my opening monologue and hasn't logged off just yet. Matanui's first. He's got some opinions right up front. He says, doubt I'll be too helpful during this segment of the Batman, if there is one, aside from the one line, there isn't a lot I think I would fix in it. Okay. No. That's actually fair. You know, you like it. I'm sure there's going to be some other people in the chat that like it. We'll kind of get into some of that. That's fine. Of course, Netter of Netter's Network is my blue wrench behind the scenes.
Hi guys.
Hi, love you too, Netter. She's saying hi to everyone in the chat. Artificer Joni, good morning, my friend. Good to see you there. Z-Topia.
I said hi to Netter.
Who's right here. Yeah. Ace, I know I'm going to mess up your name. Moick. Ace Moick. Okay, if I am wrong, please correct me. But how you doing? Good to see you. Boy, I don't think I've seen you around, have I? I've seen you in some other groups.
I think he was in your chat last week too.
Yeah, I don't remember last week very well, so forgive me on that one. But I hope I've earned your subscription, and thanks so much for being here. D. Pensek, David, good evening, gentlemen, and Netter of Netter's Network. Deleted scene, Stephen Otten. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. Leia plus size. Oh, haven't seen you very often. So glad you're here. I know you've got some opinions about the Batman. Let's see. Would you think she'd chaff from the leaf under? See, I did think about going that way with that joke. I did think about, underwear made out of leaves. And no, just, full flowering. No, I didn't. So we'll just drop that. We'll drop her knickers. Daniel Heron. Hello, my friend. Before you go, make sure you drop your link and tell us what's going on Wednesday, because we can never seem to remember when we get to the end of the show. Hell, I'm lucky I can remember anything at the end of the show. David says, oh my God, they still make tab. I thought they had quit, but Netter has just confirmed that is not the case. So.
You can have tab all the time.
Oh, Matanui. Okay, for your sake, I'll do it. I don't know if you can hear her or not. Alexa, open the pod bay doors.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. Also, I'm not Hal, and we're not in space.
Also, I'm not Dave. Dave's not here.
A whole show on suggesting things to her to see what her response
I know. Other YouTubers have done it. No need. So Ace Moick has confirmed that I pronounced that correctly. It's all good, dude. I repress each week. You are my number one fan. If you forget my show every week and keep coming back, that's awesome. I'm always concerned about the people that will remember my stream. They won't come back the following week. Okay, so I think I've greeted everyone that I've seen
Artificer
so far.
Joni.
I did say good morning to
okay.
Artificer Joni, because I know
right,
that
then.
he's just getting up when I'm starting my show, which is, probably good to come into a stream like this fresh. I come in after a long work week and I want to down my sorrows. And Daniel Heron has just dropped his link. Soundtracks with Birdman every Wednesday. Daniel Heron, that guy at the far right there, Age Boomer, and occasionally other guests look at movies in a very different way than a lot of other people do. Other people do rewatches and talk about story and quality and actors and, whatever. They look at the soundtracks and they talk about how good or how bad they might be and what they lend to the production.
Yeah,
Battlestar.
Galactica. Here's what's going on this week. His stream is falling on my mother's birthday, so I will not be able to attend. But he will be on with Big Al. Big Al Presents, and they are going to be covering 2 choice episodes of the Battlestar Galactica remake series, the newer series that was on Sci-Fi all those years back.
I don't remember the soundtrack to that very well. I only remember the soundtrack to the original.
What?
That was classic. Yeah, that was classic stuff. I did watch all of the new Babylon 5. Now that too. The new Battlestar Galactica and the subsequent film Caprica, which I kind of wish had continued. I think they were doing a really good job with that, but what are you going to do?
Okay, honey, I can only get tab from Australia.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm fine. We're good with what we got. Well, that's fair. I know that people tend to mispronounce my last name. Not that it bothers me, but I kind of have a conviction about at least making a good faith effort to pronounce people's names correctly. But yeah,
people have a hard time pronouncing Topia.
Topia, yeah, Topia.
Topia.
Oh, and Keely Chow. Welcome, Keely Chow. So, what's going on? Actually, I think that's a great segue to get us into what we were talking about. So, we started talking, refresh my memory, Aged Boomer, what was the news article we were talking about on Sunday that got us into all the DC stuff?
Well, give me 1 second to pull up the notes. It was
put you on the spot there.
Darn it! Hold on, give me 1 minute. Hold on. I know that we
and of course Z-Topia, if you remember, jump in.
Yeah, I don't remember what article it was specifically, but it was obviously our discussion was brilliant, and we made a lot of great.
And if you are, at all curious, what I'm talking about, I am talking about the last Geeky Geezers, which Z-Topia was a special guest on that as well. Link is into the description, so you can go and check it out over on Aged Boomer's channel and maybe give it a like and, see what we were talking about. But we started to get a little bit off topic.
This is the one. Warner Brothers release dates: The Flash and Aquaman. Moved to 2020.
Right. And all the DC
everything
stuff
off.
Everything's being pushed out. Yes. So a little bit of backstory, because actually, I mean, there's about half of y'all here might not know this. The rest of you guys are kind of regulars and probably know about this. But over on MeWe, also link in the description, I created a group called Fixing. I think it's called Fixing.
We're always looking for innovative.
What was that?
It's going to MeWe. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Fixing the DC Cinematic Universe or something like that. And it's what I was thinking is we've had so many false starts with the DC Cinematic Universe. We had what was going on television, and it never crossed over with what was happening in the movies. We had a bunch of actually pretty successful DC films that were not connected in any way until we finally got to the Snyderverse, which has its issues too, and does not cross over at all with anything that's on television. And they're trying desperately to follow the Marvel formula by doing, it seems, the complete opposite. Instead of doing a bunch of different movies to establish the characters and then bring them all together, they decide, well, we'll just bring them all together and then we'll do separate movies. And it's been kind of a clusterfuck ever since. But I said, can you imagine an in real life alternate universe where they started with one success and built on it instead of spending all those years keeping the peas and carrots on their plate from ever touching, right? So back when they were doing Smallville, not that it was perfect, We're imagining some changes being made to Smallville as well. But Smallville starting out as a 4-year series, giving you that origin story for like a Superboy type character, right? And then it spins off to the movies. Or maybe we get some time in Metropolis. It goes from being Smallville to Metropolis or whatever before going up to the big screen. And maybe remaking, kind of the way Snyder did by remaking Superman 2, kind of remaking the story beats of the Donner Superman, right? Whoop, stay nice. And spinning off other things from that, whether it's instead of creating Arrow, right, and creating an Arrowverse, they had actually used the Green Arrow they created on Smallville for their spinoff. Spun off Aquaman from Smallville. All these other characters that became CW characters, okay? The Flash being the same Flash you see in the movies that you see on TV, so on and so forth. Stuff like that. So we've been doing this exercise for a while. Like I say, follow us on the MeWe. Check out what we've done there. We share articles about some great stuff that's still happening, like the Batman 89 and Superman 77 and Batman 66 comics that have come out that continue those storylines that we loved in the movies and never got good follow-ups to. I just recently started reading that Superman. Is it Superman 77 or 78? I forget. But it's as if they had done they don't even establish whether it would have been in place of Superman 3 or Superman 4, or if it takes place as a Superman 5. But the important point is it picks up that Brainiac story that they wanted to do. But they do it well. It's actually really, really good, at least so far. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But so...
Is Richard Pryor in it?
No, so far, no. Interestingly, though, the artwork is really good because the characters are drawn to look like the actors. So it looks like Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder. They bring back Gene Hackman. Trying to figure out who the artist had in mind to be cast as Brainiac. I'm not quite clear on that yet.
What might have been Christopher Walken. That was Tim Burton's pick.
Not sure I would have gone that route.
Robert Duvall.
That would have been interesting. Well, keep in mind that they're going with they're doing both versions of Brainiac. They're doing the green alien with the cybernetics.
Yeah.
The bald one, right?
Yeah.
As well as the superpowers version, the one that looks like a Terminator with a big exposed brain.
What?
Oh, hey, Clobbering Times. Good to see. Oh, wow. It is Superman 78. And let me tell you something. When it comes to comics, this is your expert, okay? Clobbering Times, subscribe to his channel. He is constantly doing talks about comic books. And he and I have clearly chewed some of the same ground as far as comics go, because, he was reading, he was getting into comics about the same time I was. Although he's got more Marvel knowledge than I do, we chewed some of the same ground in DC, absolutely for certain. But Ace says the Superman 78 comic was pretty good. Pryor kind of had a cameo in the comic, along with the Goonies. Oh, that's interesting. I'm only on the second issue, so I haven't really gotten that far into it. But so anyway, going back to what we were originally getting at, we were talking about, and as Aged Boomer brought up, we were talking on Sunday about the fact that Warner Brothers has pushed off the release dates of all of their slate of movies. And they're trying to spin it as, well, there's a backlog in the special effects companies because of, the pandemic of unknown origin and so forth. But let's face it. I'm not saying they're wrong. Orville Nation Orville Nation, PJ, good to see you, my friend. You know what? That reminds me. As long as PJ hears, I'm stepping out of our current topic, going back. Another link that's in the description down below is the Give Send Go for Rambling Canuck. I posted a video about it earlier this week. I keep sharing out the link on social media. I haven't. Last couple of videos have not been sharing my tip jar link because I want anybody who is so inclined, has a few bucks to give, please give to help out Rambling Canuck. He's got a lot of things going on in his life, just trying to make ends meet, and he lives in Canada. That in and of itself should tell you something. So, but the reason that Orville Nation reminded me of that, because I know that PJ was doing this really, I don't know if it's still going on. PJ, let us know if that's the case. But he's been doing a raffle. He's got a bunch of really cool items that he's gotten from the Orville and from Dark Matters, props, screen use props, stuff like that. Anybody that gives to the Give Send Go can be put into that that drawing. Oh, so he said that the drawing is on Monday. Okay. So definitely go give anything you can give is definitely going to help. Oh wow. Yeah, so we've got screen use costumes. I've seen ship models. I think somebody won, or maybe it hasn't. Oh, he said it hasn't happened yet until Monday. That episode of the Orville where they had the social media social credit system with the up and down vote thing. The prop from that, pretty cool stuff. Yeah,
cool thing to have in your background.
Oh yeah. And I'll just keep hitting the down button for everything that I say that would get me canceled, But yeah, exactly.
If you vote down on your own self, I don't know how to help you.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the drawing is on Monday. So if there's some stuff that in that raffle you think you'd be interested in, by all means get involved. But let me tell you, Robert really needs some help, and I would consider it a personal favor if you guys went and just anything you could give, anything you got would I'd really appreciate it, and you know what, share out the link too, and just let anybody that's in your sphere of influence know about it. Just say, look, this is a good guy. He's in Canada. He's had some health problems. He's found himself on harsh times, and look. Who knows in these times when you might be the one that needs help from the community,
Very true.
So please. Okay. So, and, of course, as Netter is the cheerleader for our team, also subscribe to Orville Nation because he's good people and he's got great content. So, yeah.
Drop the links for both Clobbering Times and Orville Nation.
Thank you very much. Subscribe to everybody that you can. It really helps. We grow together, as Orville Nation says. Yeah, he's waiting on a kidney. And so, I mean, no matter how much money he collects, that's not going to help him get a kidney. But, there's a lot of other needs that he's got right now just in his life. So please. So anyway. So let's get back to another, hard luck case, and that's the DC Cinematic Universe. So everything's been pushed off, and they're blaming it on COVID. But and I'm not saying that's not true. I'm sure there is some truth to that. Pardon me.
I'm saying it's not true.
Well, I'm sure there's something to it. I hadn't considered the fact that there probably is. Some reality there that the special effects houses are kind of swamped right now, but I don't think that's the primary problem.
No,
they're still using everybody is looking for excuses for why they're failing, and they want to blame it on COVID. And I think the reality is they're on the sidelines. They're also making some big changes. They're fumbling. They're flailing. let's be honest there, okay? I mean, even if you don't like where Marvel is going, at least they've got a plan and all their stuff is interconnected.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
DC has no friggin' clue. You know, they literally have just created a new Batman. And we've already seen that there are some people in the chat that like it, but this is clearly not a Batman that is in any way connected to anything that's gone before it. In fact, with this recent release of unused footage involving the Joker, it's very clear this is not even tied to the Joaquin Phoenix Joker film. This is yet a whole other universe. This isn't Snyderverse. This isn't Nolan. This isn't the Joker. This is yet another Batman. And that's why I said I feel like DC has a Batman problem. All they can do is keep making new Batman movies and see what sticks.
So here's what's been moved off to just recap for you. It's DC League of Super Pets, which I don't believe is connected to the Snyderverse. That's its own thing. It's a cartoon.
And that's an
right?
animated feature, right?
Yes. It's like it's like The Secret Life of Pets with super pets, I guess. All right. We have The Flash. What? Am I wrong? You don't think that's how it was
I
pitched?
hadn't thought of it
You
that
don't
way.
think
I
that's
think
how
you're
it was pitched.
absolutely
Let's
right.
do Secret Life of Pets.
Perfect pitch.
Yeah, but
Nope,
with super
you're right.
dogs. Okay, that's okay. The Flash has been moved. The Flash, I guess, is still Snyderverse, right? Because it's Ezra Miller. Aquaman is
What,
still.
you want to fight? I'll fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Aquaman, which I believe. What does it just say? Aquaman. Aquaman 2. They're talking about.
Yeah.
Unless they're just re-releasing the first one again.
Aquaman.
Well, they did that
Yeah,
with
the
Suicide
Aquaman,
Squad.
yeah.
Why not?
It should be Aquaman. That could be the sequel. He could be fighting his
No.
devil from
The
another
second
universe.
movie would be The Aquaman. I think that's how they're doing all the movies.
Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which has been postponed. That's also, I believe, Snyderverse. Were they ever clear on where Shazam is? Is that still Snyderverse?
I think they've established solidly.
They talked about Superman and some of
They did. I'm leaning toward that it is. And I'm assuming
And there had been talk about getting Cavill in for a cameo and stuff like that. Yeah, they had clearly been planning that to be part and parcel. Yeah.
Okay. And I know there's that Black Adam movie they're supposed to be doing.
By the way, deleted scenes. When he says he's glad that the deleted scenes were deleted, I'm sure he doesn't mean you, Stephen.
Okay. So Joker, that was the Joaquin Phoenix standalone movie, which I now believe is getting a sequel, but they are not tying it to the Batman movie as I thought they might, if according to something I heard about this new movie. But I didn't see the new movie. I don't know anyone who may be here tonight maybe did.
I've seen it twice.
And actually, speaking of movies that were postponed, hasn't. Oh no! I was thinking about something else entirely. I thought they were doing something with Tron, but what made me think of that was that Trey of Max World Entertainment has stopped by with his customary greetings programs from Tron. Follow Max World Entertainment on YouTube. He hosts some great content over there with some really good fan-made films. Honestly, the fans are doing the best work. May not be always the best special effects. May not always be the best acting. You know, they're doing stuff on no budgets, but they got good stories because they love what they're doing.
It has heart.
And
Yep.
I'll tell you, you know, the older I get, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved the action scenes, wanted to get them to the action scenes. But then at some point, you kind of mature a little bit, and it's the beats between the action scenes that matter. And when you're doing fan stuff, you can always easily do the beats between the action scenes.
Abrams Shrek has no beats in those movies.
And there is a lot of people that are talking in the chat about Maxie Zeus. I'll broaden that a little bit. I think it's getting to be about time that they start taking some cues from the animated series and start kind of broadening themselves and quit using the Joker over and over and over again and quit using all the same villains over and over and over again. Okay. Honestly, it's about time you start grabbing some of those more obscure ones, even some of the goofy ones, and updating them.
Well,
I don't think anyone is going to care if you take Maxie Zeus and maybe not call him Maxie Zeus, call him Max Zeus or something like that, or something. I don't know. Find something clever to do with them.
Do you know what? Actually, I had to give Christopher Nolan credit when he did Batman Begins. He's doing Ra's al Ghul, or as they called him, Ra's al Ghul in that version. They didn't just
talk
go
about pronouncing names correctly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was so focused. Happy birthday, Trey. He was just celebrating his birthday on his watch party.
Oh.
I did stop in very briefly and gave you a like, but I didn't stay long enough to comment because I was trying to get some stuff done behind the scenes here to yeah. I waste my time around here. I do stuff like this.
Release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken. The Kraken.
And now he's like, oh, you were busy putting that together instead of coming and wishing me a happy birthday. What kind of a friend are you? Yeah, exactly. Sorry. I do love you.
It wasn't his birthday.
Oh, it wasn't?
Look at the last chat comment. Al Vision 100's birthday.
Oh, well, I could have wished him a happy birthday too. Either way. See, I'm that not engaged because I'm so freaking busy. I'm going crazy over here, man.
Okay. So
sorry, I've gotten us completely off track because I happen to love my chat.
What is the Batman problem? You were saying villains, they're using the same villains over and over again.
They've got a lot of Batman problems. The biggest one that I see, and you saw it from my thumbnail, is we've had like 5 or 6 Batmans, and they're arguably all in completely different universes. Obviously, you've got, Adam West. He's in a league of his own, right? You've got Michael Keaton, right? The Tim Burton verse, right?
Mm-hmm.
One can argue about whether or not the 2 subsequent actors were playing the same Batman, whether or not Val Kilmer and what's his name?
George Clooney,
thank you, are the same Batman. I have heard it both ways.
I think they are. I mean,
same
you got
Alfred,
the same Robin, you got the same
but
Alfred.
They are so tonally different. There's a lot of people that believe that the Schumacher Batman is a different Batman from the Tim Burton. Either way, I think you're splitting hairs here. You're splitting bad hairs, right? Because clearly then you go...
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
oh no, that's okay. And then you go on to Christopher Nolan, right, with his Batman, and then we get Batfleck, and then we get Sparkly Bat, and they're all different Batmen from different universes.
I wanted to bring up something with the Joel Schumacher Batman movies. I think they're what I would call, and we probably don't have this term yet in the lexicon, so I'll go and throw it in there, a soft sequel.
Yeah, that's a good way to define it.
Because, for instance, The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, I almost want to think it's a soft sequel to the prior Hulk, the one that had Eric Bana in it, because it feels like it was continuing where that one left off. Even though you could say, well, no, it isn't. It's its own movie, so you can kind of read it both ways, and that's sort of how I feel about
it. For the longest time, we were able to do the same thing with the. Who's the kid playing Spider-Man right now?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, yeah. There was no origin story. They just jumped en medias res, and he could have been the same Spider-Man as any of the previous incarnations. It's up to you. But then again, they completely shot that in the foot with the last, the live action Into the Spider-Verse they did.
Yeah. Well, plus he was still in high school, right? Don't they keep throwing him into college like as soon as they can in the old movies?
And Deleted Scenes has started his own channel, so please subscribe. I know he was having some technical difficulties today. I hope you got those worked out. But I am looking forward to his content and maybe, I'm hoping, guesting on his channel sometime soon.
Cool.
Looking forward to that. So yeah, that's my biggest problem is that we have all these Batman. I mean, we've got more Batmen than we have Supermans or Spider-Mans, and it's getting flipping ridiculous. It's getting time for them to.
Well, now they're bringing back Michael Keaton, so I mean they're going full circle.
And one could question whether that is supposed to be the same Batman from the Batman '89 Tim Burton verse, or if this is going to just be the same actor in a whole other universe.
Yeah, we'll probably have to catch up on that one as we see it as soon as they start releasing the trailer. But you're right. I mean, are they going to recreate the Tim Burton world for that Batman for Michael Keaton's Batman when he's there, or is this just going to be we never even see it, so we never even get an acknowledgement of it?
Oh, this is confusing to me now because now it's like, are we now not supposed to acknowledge Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and this Batgirl movie is the true Batman 3 we never got?
Could be.
You're just sending us down a rabbit hole.
Oh,
It's Warner Brothers just their master plan, their strategic plan is I want $1 billion movie. And then if they don't get the $1 billion movie, then they go off and they say, well, then we just have to trash everything that we've done and all of our plans that we're going to do until we get our $1 billion movie. And it's just foolish. You can't do that. I mean, Marvel didn't start out with $1 billion movies. They started out with, Captain America was their lowest grossing movie before Avengers, and it cracked, I think, maybe 300 million. And it actually, no, I think that one only did 150 million. And you build upon yourself, and they don't have the courage, and they don't have. It's not even courage. They don't know these characters well enough to be able to establish them to be able to build on each other.
They don't have. You're right. They don't have the courage. They don't have the creativity, and they have way too friggin' much ego. Because every writer that comes in and wants to work on these characters wants to make it their own. Yep. This is my Batman because I'm so special. And people need to frickin' understand you didn't create these fucking characters. So get your head out of your ass. Okay? You're playing in someone else's friggin' sandbox. If you don't like that, don't do it. Go make your own shit.
Yeah. There's literally 80 years worth of material to go back and to be able to study the character and be able to say, oh, here are the highlights, here are the high points. This is what makes Batman Batman. And to be able to, and as a writer, you should be able to translate onto a screen. Instead, as you say, their egos say, well, now I have to add on, I have to add onto this and be year 81 and think that they're going to completely change the previous 80 years. Well, now that we know more, now that we're more educated, we don't need to have the Batman from the 1930s. We can move them forward. But what's great about
here's the big problem that I see, right? They use those old stories to justify shit they do now. Yeah. You know, I've seen the Snyder bots defending the neck snap. Well, Superman in the 1930s killed all the time, you know, defending Batfleck. Well, Batman killed in the 1930s. You got to understand that history is a continuity, right? Things change gradually over time. Okay. So you're right. That's what happened in the 30s. And then at some point they decided, you know, a hero is something different in the minds of our readers. We need to change to match that. All these people that are like, you got to change with the times, need to fucking change with the times and understand the changes that have happened up to this point.
Right.
Okay.
Well, at some point you create the iconic Batman. You create the iconic Superman, and you had better be a great freaking writer to be able to say, well, now I'm going to create my own iconic Superman.
And keep in mind the whole history.
Create your own character.
Right.
You do that.
The whole history of these characters is punctuated by many different periods of change. some for the better, some for the worse. And the comic book companies have been intelligent enough to go, okay, this was a misstep. Let's back off. I'm thinking about Ben Reilly and the Clone Saga and the One More Day and all this other bullshit they did over at Marvel, right?
Even just with Batman, I mean, they tried to match the TV show Batman for so long, and then all of a sudden someone comes along and says, "You know what was great about Batman? He was dark, and he was tortured, and so were his villains. Let's get back to that."
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too. There's another Batman problem for you, right? And I would say it's the Frank Miller problem, right? The iconic Batman, and I really don't like using that term because it infers that there's one Batman that has existed all along going back to the dawn of time, and that's not true,
No.
right? But there is this comic book canon Batman that has become the Frank Miller Batman, but was not meant to be. Okay, I think about lines like, I can't remember exactly where it was, but I remember somebody saying something about how dark Batman was, and Barbara Gordon saying, "You see him as dark? No. He's not dark. He operates in the dark, but he's a light in that darkness. He believes that things can be better, and he works against the darkness for a better tomorrow," or something like that. And I'm totally paraphrasing, right? That's who Batman is. Batman is about justice, and he does operate outside the law, right? But by and large, he follows the spirit of the law as best he can. He doesn't kill because that's the exact opposite of what he's fighting against. He doesn't use guns because his parents were killed by a gun, right? He believes in due process. And this is why he makes sure that the Joker goes to Arkham Asylum. He's sick and he needs treatment. And this is why he, well, depending on which villain, let's say, Mahoney or something goes to jail because they deserve jail, right? He doesn't take the law into his own hands in that regard, right?
Another point I wanted to make, this was shown on the animated series, he also believes that criminals can be reformed. Now, I don't know if he thinks deep down, maybe, I don't know if he thinks about that about the Joker, but I remember one time he helped bust a guy, but then when the guy got out of prison, he got him a job at Wayne Industries after he served his time, and Bruce Wayne had gotten him a job. So,
well, I think he understands the Joker well enough to know the Joker can't be rehabilitated, right? And he probably can't be cured, but he deserves the best opportunity. And really, Arkham is all we got. We could get into a whole discussion about, the state of healthcare and, mental illness and how we deal with that in our legal system. But be that as it may, he's doing the best that he can for the people he deals with. There is a reason that he doesn't just kill summarily, right? He's not, as some people have tried to equate him, he's not the Punisher from Marvel, right? No. And that's where people like Jason Todd and who is the one that was Anarchy? Those characters, those are true anti-heroes. Batman really does stand for justice, which doesn't always, fall under the law. The law isn't always just. I think we've seen that very, very clearly in the past couple of years, right? But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, part of what Batman wants to do is he wants to save Gotham. He wants Gotham to get better, and he's doing it by scaring the criminal element. But
right,
as you say, he believes that criminal element can change, and they can be a force for good in Gotham. But he wants Gotham to heal. in a way, he sees Gotham as his own pain, and Gotham, and he wants to heal it. Him healing Gotham helps him heal himself, and
Yeah.
that's the tragedy of it, is that he's never able to heal Gotham enough in order to heal himself. And
Right. And I've also seen the commentaries where, he's he's got post-traumatic stress himself, and he's got his own mental issues and stuff.
Sure.
They've even played with that a little bit in the movies, but
And they play with that theme in the Batman, of where the voiceover at the beginning of what Batman says, and then what the voiceover is at the end. I don't know if you want me to spoil anything or talk about spoilers at all, but
look, I think that everybody here that was planning to see it has probably already seen it, and those that haven't seen it probably aren't going to be, like myself. So
yeah,
I'd say go ahead.
yeah. So his beginning monologue is that he's talking about fear and how he is the fear that he is using. He's the fear that is going to scare all of the criminals, and there's all of these shots of these criminals committing crimes and then looking up and seeing the bat signal and then being scared.
Yeah.
And then Batman finally comes on one of the crimes and takes care of the criminals and saves a guy. And then at the end, as he's helping rescue Gothamites from flooding and from the buildings, he's saying that he realizes that he can be more than fear. He can be hope. And
that's
kind of
that's a great way to look at it. I think one thing that is very much missing from most film versions of Batman. No, I'm going to say all film versions of Batman. Although Nolan came close, I'm not entirely certain that he did it well enough to indicate he really knew how close he was. The best thing about the Batman's best villains is how they reflect him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Joker is kind of his antithesis. He's well trained, he's very intelligent, he's got great gadgets, but he's a psychopath, right? You could argue that they both have certain mental problems, but Joker has used his mental problems for evil, and Batman has channeled his towards doing good. You could focus on the one aspect of fear, using fear against your enemy. Batman, realized he was afraid of bats. The criminals are a cowardly lot. I'll use fear against them, so on and so forth. The theatrics, so to speak, as the Nolan verse said it. And then you look at someone like Scarecrow, who also uses fear, but he uses it for his own personal gain, right? With less theatrics, he uses chemical, and he kind of cheats on the fear factor. One could argue that Bane, in many ways, is a lot like Batman, right? He pushes himself to the peak and gains a lot of money in order to have the ability to do the things that he does, but it's all for his own personal reasons and for not for the good of others. And instead of he takes shortcuts. He takes steroids instead of pushing himself and so forth. And
and that's what villains should do, is that they're supposed to challenge the hero in some way, whether it's physically or whether it's morally. A good villain should make a hero rethink what he or she is doing, and in the end, either they change and say, well, maybe the villain has a point, or no, you know what, that villain was wrong, and here's why I am better than that villain. This is why I do what I do, and I don't turn into that. Because
right.
a lot of heroes started out, and Spider-Man started out selfish. He didn't help that guy. He didn't help capture that guy, and it cost him something.
Right, and to a lesser extent, over on the DC side, you see that in a character like Booster Gold. Right,
Right.
his whole thing was to make money.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a hero, but I want to be rich and famous. Right,
Right.
and as his character develops over time, he starts to realize, yeah, maybe this isn't the
Those
coolest
two
thing.
things are very hard to be able to do together.
And he does continue to try to, let me continue to try to make the money and so forth. But then you see in his guilt about it, he starts using the money to help other superheroes and, puts it back into the whole effort of the superhero concept, right? Kind of almost Batman-ish,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's another big problem that they have. And the final thing that I had in mind as far as the Batman problem is that because they have had such great success with almost every iteration of Batman that they've done, they want every one of their characters to be Batman.
Yeah, that is
So you end up with Batman who flies, and you have female Batman, and you have underwater Batman, and you have Batman runs really fast.
right. Yeah, they think that that's what makes it special, and it's not. It's actually what makes DC and comics in general special is that there is something for everyone. You have
Right.
a lot of diversity. You have the reasons why a hero does what they do be different. Because,
Right. Let's talk about diversity for a
Yeah.
second, right?
absolutely.
How do you relate to a character on screen or in a comic book or in a book that you're reading, right? Do they have to look exactly like you? Do they have to be male? Do they have to be white? Or do they have to be female? Or do they have to be black? Do they have to be straight, bi, whatever? No.
It's what
That's
they
not
do
what
and how they
makes
do it.
those characters who they are. But things like being a single mom or being a high school student or, being not very, not having a lot of money and barely getting by and things like that, being picked on, being an orphan, right?
Yeah.
Being
Feeling
a fish
alone.
out of water, so to
Yeah.
speak. Boy, talk about the orphan trope, right?
Sure.
So you got the obvious one is Batman. His parents are killed, right? But that's exactly what Superman is too,
That's right.
right? I mean, they have a lot of similarity there. His parents died, and he was lucky enough to be brought up by adoptive parents that cared about him and gave him a good upbringing. Not wealthy, they barely got by. They were farmers, salt of the earth type upbringing. Whereas Bruce, right, his parents died. He inherited a bunch of wealth and is basically raised by the butler.
Yeah. He internalized everything.
Yeah.
Batman or Superman wanted to belong. He looked for someone to help him. Batman doesn't look for anybody to help him. He kind of, not consciously, subconsciously, he wants the Robins and he wants them, but consciously he pushes everyone away, except for Alfred.
Now here's a very difficult concept as far as diversity and being able to relate to a character. Wonder Woman. She's a woman, right? So all the little girls look up to her. I guess you could argue single mother because she doesn't have a father. I think that was the biggest misstep that happened in the comics during the New 52 era. This idea that her father is Zeus. It completely undermines the intent of Wonder Woman. Talk about a feminist story. The idea was that she was a woman created by a woman and only a woman. Okay? And from the mystical side, right? She's given life, given a soul or whatever by only the female gods of the pantheon of the Greeks, with one exception, right? Hermes gave her the ability to run fast, to fly, to whatever her incarnation was. Hermes who represents the in between, right? From which we derive hermaphrodite, right? So talk about the trans concept there, right? So she's a really hard one to relate to because there isn't anyone in this world who doesn't have a biological father. Now, you could be more abstract about it, which is how you should be when you relate to a character and say she had a single mother. There's a lot of people with single mothers, right? That grew up with a single mom, maybe didn't know who their dad was. So you can relate to Wonder Woman that way, you know? But yeah, I think they really screwed the pooch on that in the New 52 by making her taking away that separation from the man, you know, and making her purely female and making her a goddess, right? I mean, everyone complains, "Oh, it's so hard to relate to Superman. He's like a god among men," which is a complete misunderstanding of who Superman is, right? He is more human than most humans, you know? He just happens to have godlike abilities. But the humility of a human, of the humblest among us, right? I love that line from the first, was it the first Superman? You know what your problem is, Kent? Or you know what you lack? Humility? No, you got bags of humility. He does. He absolutely does, right? So if you're going to cast that kind of an aspersion on him, he's a god among men. Diana is a goddess among humans. At least that's what they made her in the New 52 era. I think they backed off it a little bit in the movies because I think that the writers on those movies were like, yeah, people still need to be able to relate to this character somehow, right?
Yeah.
Hey, look, I have to give credit where credit's due. Sometimes they...
No, there was an issue though in the Wonder Woman movie. She was supposed to be like a weapon to take out, I guess, Ares. That was the whole point, and it's like, no, that's sort of what they alluded to. Like she was created to be the weapon to take out Ares, which
yeah, clearly
that's
not
another
her.
problem.
Yeah,
I know it's one of those aha twists they put in things, but I don't, it's
and I think this leads us into another part of our a direction I had wanted to go to anyway. Max World Entertainment brings up basically the Elseworld stories, which is DC's version of What If, right? Taking characters and thinking of them in alternate universe versions, right? And the Red Sun version of Superman, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding the story you're referring to, Trey, is where Superman, the basic what if is, what if Kal-El landed, instead of landing in Smallville, Kansas, he lands in the former Soviet Union. And he is brought up as a Russian Superman. And this is what's really interesting about this. And you see this as he comes off as almost a villainish character, but by the end, he ends up, and this is a common recurring theme for Superman in the Elseworlds. He always tends to end up in the same place, whether it's, Red Sun or whatever. He ends up being the good guy. There's even one, it's called Speeding Bullet. The story is, what if Clark had landed, or Kal-El, I should say, instead of landing in Smallville, Kansas, he lands just outside of Gotham City, and he's found by the Waynes. It's not the best story because it's a little too on the nose, but it's basically the idea of Batman with Superman's powers, right? Because it's Kal-El. But by the end of even that story, he ends up renouncing his Batman identity and becomes Superman. He becomes that bright, positive, hopeful character. He eschews the Dark Knight aspect. It's like Kal-El was always meant to be Superman. That
Yeah, well,
truth, justice, and the American way character.
He
Right?
has an innate knowledge of right and wrong, and it doesn't matter where you're going to plop him, but he's going to thrive where he is able to be a force for good versus a force for bad. So whether or not he was raised in Kansas or Russia, he recognizes um, uh, good from bad, and he's going to eventually realize it and fight
Look,
against bad.
I think what it comes down to is I think if he's going to be a heroic character, and I think most of the writers that have gotten this right understand this, the only way that he could be that kind of a character is if he has the humility to understand he's got all these abilities, but he must limit what he does, not subvert people's free will, not be a dictator, not be a murderer. Okay.
Yeah.
What he needs to be, if he's going to be a hero and not a villain, is exactly what Superman is. I made this analogy years ago in a church a Bible study that I was involved with. It's the story of Jesus, where he's walking along, followed by people who all want to get in. I almost picture it like a star being hounded by people wanting his autograph, and he's all of the apostles are saying, leave him alone, not now, and so forth. And there's this one woman who is in need of healing, and she's crying out to him, and he's ignoring her. And eventually what happens is she comes up and touches his cloak and is healed by him. And, it says that Jesus felt the energy go out of him, and he stopped and said, "Who touched me?" Right? Now, this is Jesus, right? This is an aspect of God. He's omniscient. He knows all. He already knew the answer to the question he was asking. He knew who touched him. Why does he ask? So that this story can be told and he could teach a lesson, right? And going back even further, why did he ignore this woman? He's Jesus. He should have just said, someone needs help. I'm here to help them. He withheld his help because he knew he would have the opportunity to teach the lesson. The lesson being, why did you do this? I knew that if I touched you, you would help me. I was in need. And he said, I didn't help you. It was your faith that healed you. Basically making a lesson to everyone that heard him, including all of us who have read that scripture in the Bible, right? That's a huge deal, right? So you could almost imagine Jesus with all this ability who can help all these people at all times. And in this one instance, he desperately wants to help because that's the person he is. He wants to help. He loves, and it hurts him not to help somebody. But he goes, I got to wait because this is a great opportunity that's going to help more people, And it's the same thing with Superman, right? I could do all these great things, right? And actually, I think they even tried to do this with Superman 4. As horrible as that movie was, right? It had a great central core concept. This idea that Superman says, I've got this ability to bring about world peace by instituting it. And he learns a lesson. Yeah, no, I can't. Just because of all the things that I can do. Because I would have to enforce my will on everyone. Better that I don't and let them learn the lesson. I will jump in front of the bullets and I'll stop the bombs when they get released to the best of my ability. But I am not going to take away their free will.
We should do a Superman 4 rewatch at some point. That might be an interesting rewatch. Like where things went
Actually,
wrong.
now that I have this ability to be able to share what I'm watching, I think I might start doing some of the fan edits. There's a really good fan edit that puts 3 and 4 together in a very cool edit.
Yeah. Well, honestly, if you said that the DC movie universe peaked with the the first Superman, and you know it might be hard to argue that.
Well, I don't know. I still like the two Burton Batman movies. They, I'm not saying they don't have their flaws, but I do.
I
enjoy
do
them.
have to say that brings up, you know, I mean, was it Mark Twain who said history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes?
Yeah.
And it was quoted by George Lucas too, when he was talking about his ideas for Star Wars, you know,
Mhm.
It doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I feel like I see the same thing happen with Superman, right? Because you had that whole dust up with Richard Donner.
Sure.
And before he was finished, they fire him and Mankiewicz takes over and whatnot. Or no, it wasn't. It was
Lester.
Lester, thank you.
Ooh, yeah.
Lester takes over. And then many years later, we get the Donner cut, right? And then we see the same thing with Snyder, right?
Yeah.
You know, where he
That
does
is
his
true.
Justice League,
Yeah.
and then we get a Snyder cut. And you can argue whether it was better or not and whatnot, but at least you get to see what their vision was. I always, honestly, as a kid, when I saw Superman 2, I was like, I feel like, you know, the whole turn the world back thing shouldn't have happened. What should have happened was, and because you have a bomb going off in space, right? In the first movie, he takes the nuclear bomb and pushes it out into space, right? In the second movie, they come up with this whole French Paris, you know, terrorist thing
No. Yes.
in order to use the same to have another reason for another nuclear bomb to go off in space, you know, because the two movies were supposed to be tied together. He was supposed to stop the one going to Hackensack, push it off into space, and that was supposed to be the bomb. It was supposed to be like almost a pre-credit scene where you see the bomb going off into space, blowing up and releasing the Phantom Zone villains,
Yeah.
you know, which actually would have made a lot of sense.
Tied them together a lot better.
And then the second movie was supposed to end with the date rape kiss, you know, that or not date rape kiss, but turn back the world, right?
Forgetting kiss.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but honestly, the way it was written, it ended up becoming a date rape kiss, which is not cool for Superman. Right? Especially when you add in Superman Returns and she's got a baby and in theory doesn't remember how she got pregnant in the first place.
Plus there's the whole
spying on her with his super peepers. Yeah. That's pretty creepy.
I think
This
that
is what I
was
was getting at.
That was
This
a Bryan
whole
Singer special.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a Bryan Singer special. Bryan
This-
Singer, who we'll never see in the United States again, probably.
This whole idea that because everything I was just saying about Superman and how he when he doesn't use his powers, it demonstrates how righteous he is, right? He doesn't use his powers. And honestly, this is one of the things I liked about Smallville, right? Every time, like, I think the best one was when he gets his X-ray vision. They dealt with it in a very modern way. How would a teenager with X-ray vision?
Yeah, really act.
So his first thing, right? He has an incident during gym class, and he's looking into the women's locker room, and his first reaction is he smiles because that's how we'd all react. And then he's like,
Oh wait, can't do that.
and what does he do? He does exactly what none of us would ever fucking do. He goes home and talks to his parents about it.
Yeah,
Who the hell would do that?
you would have to be a Superman to do that.
Yup, because every woman in my life would go, "Why are you staring at me?" Right? I would never tell my... Well, and here's the other problem, right? I wouldn't talk to my mother about it. I would tell my father about it, and my father would say, "Hey, good for you, man."
No.
How do I get a set of those? Son?
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. No, it's that's the difference. That's what makes Superman, right? What he doesn't do, you know. And
it's always the somebody's actions that you're supposed to watch them. And that's what Superman is that he's look how I act. You can do this too. I'm not special. You can act this way too.
yep.
All you have to do is make the choice.
And I saw it so much with the Christopher Reeve, and I saw it a lot in the comics too, where you got the fireman or the cop or the whatever. Thank you, Superman. Oh, you don't have to thank me. We're just part of the same team.
That's right.
That's how he really sees himself.
Right.
That's not just him,
Yeah. He thinks the firemen are more brave because they don't have his powers.
That's exactly it. It's not brave for me to go into a fire and rescue people. I'm in no danger of being hurt. In fact, quite the opposite. He feels like because he's got these, he must do that thing because, it's he can.
He's able to do it better than anyone else. And so he has to. He makes that sacrifice to
he doesn't
everything else.
If he doesn't see himself with that level of humility, he becomes the character from The Boys or from Brightburn or whatever, right? He becomes the villain,
right?
Or
Tony Stark from the first Iron Man movie.
Luckily, Tony Stark learned the lesson real quick too.
Yeah. That was Tony Stark's arc over the entire phases, was learning that self-sacrifice is noble.
And this is where so many people get it wrong. Well, he was still learning to be Superman. No. He learns to be Superman before he becomes Superman. Okay. Yeah. He's not Tony Stark. He's not these other characters who have that learning. By the time he gets to Metropolis, and you see it very well in the Richard Donner, right? Where he leaves home at the end of high school to find himself. They don't go into too much detail about it. They've done different things in the comics that deal with the same basic story, but he has to figure out who he is. But by the time he gets to Metropolis, he's got a plan and he knows who he is and he knows why he's doing what he's doing,
and that's why he's able to be Clark Kent. And feed that other part of him because he knows who he is as Superman.
And that's why the whole neck snap thing is trying to argue that is so friggin' ridiculous, right? Oh, he's still learning that he's Superman and he shouldn't do that. Really? Did you take that long to figure out that it was wrong to murder?
Yeah.
That killing is wrong?
How many people did you have to kill before you figured it out?
Yeah, exactly. No. You learned that as a child.
Yeah.
Right?
How many necks did you snap, Boomer, before you figured that out? 6, 7.
It's
a process. You got to work.
It's a process. It's a process, especially when.
And I'll tell you something else. There's
35 when I figured that out. I'm kidding.
And so the other argument that they try to bring up is, I love this response. 7 or 8. I'm still working on it.
Hey, some people needed killing until you figure out they don't need killing.
Sir Torin, thanks so much for being here. Sir Torin, by the way, is very active in the MeWe group that I was talking about. He's got some great ideas about how we should rethink our cinematic universe. But yeah, and
oh, go ahead. I didn't interrupt you. I'm just.
No, I was going to get us back on topic. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say rethinking Batman. I mean, is this what you're thinking now? Like the Batman problem? How would you, or how would we go about? Would we start over? Would we try and bring Batfleck back?
No, we abso-friggin-lutely don't start over. Damn it! For crying out loud, I think that soft reboot is the way to go. Pick your universe, figure out what the fuck you want to do. Okay, and then just assume everybody already knows Batman's origin, okay, and just go with it. I think from what I've heard about this Batman, the Batman that just came out, that's what they did. They didn't rehash his origin, right? Other than maybe just mention it in passing.
Right. Yeah. No, there were no shots of him as a kid in the alleyway.
Yeah. Honestly,
There might have been, but it wasn't. It certainly wasn't a major scene in focus.
I'm kind of impressed that both Adam West's Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman never got an origin film. And both of them just dealt with it in.
I don't even remember them mentioning it in Adam West's.
Yes, they did in the pilot episode.
Okay.
It's very brief and it's just in dialogue.
Okay.
He's talking with, I think he's talking to Robin. And, in that Adam West, way of talking. Just remember, it's just like when my parents were killed by that, terrible person in that alleyway. I decided on that day that I would, dedicate my life to preventing that from happening to anyone else. And it's mentioned once and it's done, and it was the pilot, so you get the story. But honestly, other than that, it could just be any other episode of the Batman series, right? And that's kind of what they did with the first Michael Keaton Batman, right? They start literally, although they do it in a really cool tongue-in-cheek way where you think you're seeing his origin story, and it turns out to be someone else entirely. And honestly, I'm going to say this. It's the greatest justification I've ever seen for Batman. Why? Because he became Batman to do exactly that. He prevented the exact fate to that kid that had happened to him. If he were to give up being Batman right then and there, he would have, leveled the playing field. He would have established the balance.
A great scene in the new Batman, where Batman looks on a kid who Batman is investigating the death of his father, and he looks over and he's watching the kid, and they have this neat thing where Batman wears contact lenses and they record what he's seeing so that he can always go back and review. So when he looks at the Riddler's puzzle and clues, he can go back and then recreate it. He doesn't have to memorize it. So it's recording everything that he sees. And there's the shot where Alfred is reviewing it and he sees Batman staring at this kid. And there's a great shot of Alfred realizing what Bruce is thinking about in his head.
Okay. So I do want to address, and this is because I haven't done any other videos about this, and I'm not planning to, about the Batman. I haven't seen the movie. I can't review it. I can't say whether it was good or bad. But I do want to address the whole race swap issue, okay, that I have a big problem with, okay? And I've heard the justifications for it. I've heard the defenses of it, and I want to speak to those directly. I've heard a lot of people talk about justifying Selena Kyle being cast with a black actress because there's already precedent. They've done it with Eartha Kitt. That's fine. You're right. Nobody cared that Eartha Kitt was black. No one even brings it up. No one ever mentions it. And in the show, nobody ever mentioned it. She'd previously been played by a white character. She was then cast as a black character. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Very similar dynamic, right? And if that's all there was, no one would have an issue with it. Unfortunately, they decided to push that and make it an issue. As soon as she brings up her line about him having white privilege, I'm sorry. Now it's a problem. Okay, now it's an issue. Okay? It wasn't until now. Now you've pointed out the race swap, you've focused on it, and now I do have a problem with it because that's not what this is supposed to be about. I even heard Script Doctor pointed out. Now keep in mind, he's not justifying it, but he's saying, remember, the person that delivers that line is supposed to be a villain, and she's proven like wrong. You're not supposed to agree with her. You're supposed to disagree with her. And I'm like, from a writer's standpoint, you're right. But that's not the reality of what the audience picks up from it. Not in this day and age. Not the intent. Maybe it was the intent of the writer. I don't know. That's not the message that got across, though. You know, it was an SJW piece of shit that has a ripple effect throughout the rest of the movie. And now it forces us to look at the race swap of Jim Gordon. Now you're telling me it wasn't just me, it wasn't just, you know, the director and them deciding on the best actor for the role, regardless of the color of their skin. Now it was a clear decision because it has something to do with the rest of the story. And that kind of taints the whole thing for me. Any thoughts on that?
I didn't have so much of a problem of her race being swapped as that she was a charisma suck. And,
Yeah,
had
there's
no
that too.
chemistry with Robert Pattinson whatsoever.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea why by the end he was interested in her and why she was interested in him. I was like, you two are the most boring people, and there's no reason that you should do that. So yeah, so it's another charisma suck moment.
How was his chemistry with Commissioner Gordon actually in this new movie? Though?
There was nothing special about Jim Gordon. Like,
because I do like Jeffrey Wright. I've liked him in other parts. I just was curious.
Yeah.
I thought I was fine with the casting of that because Jeffrey Wright could absolutely play police commissioner.
Absolutely.
I don't know what. Same thing with Penguin. There was nothing Penguin-esque that justified him being that character.
I get the impression, without having seen this movie, that just like and I've made this comparison on social media. The Joker, I've heard compared to the King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. They're basically a mashup of those two movies. And I have heard that the Batman is basically a mashup of Zodiac and Seven. And if that's the case, then I don't need that. I can go watch those movies because those movies are classics.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that there's 2 hours of a good movie in this, but it's 3 hours long.
That's a big one.
And the first 2 hours is that kind of mashup where they use the aesthetics of Seven, and they make Riddler the Zodiac. Yeah. And it works. It works for a while, and then all of a sudden they have to set up the last hour to be about the TV shows that are going to be on the HBO Max. And it just drags on and on and on, and there's no point to it other than.
And again, I would say that Jeffrey Wright and
Zoe Kravitz
and whatnot, if they weren't playing the characters they were playing, I'd say great, perfect, wonderful. If Robert Pattinson wasn't playing Batman, if this was a movie that wasn't set in the DC universe with those character names, it was something completely different, just a pure noir film, I would say, this sounds brilliant. A modern noir film. I'm all about it. They decided to make it Batman.
Yeah.
They were playing in someone else's sandbox and kind of taking a dump in it.
I've often argued that I always get the impression that Warner Brothers just doesn't want to be making superhero movies, but that they have to make superhero movies because those are the big hit genre now, mainly because of the MCU and other forces out there. So and of course they own all the DC comics, but
you're probably right.
I don't know.
That's certainly that's just an explanation of the why. It doesn't address the problem, or it's still.
Here's the thing that I think is the problem with what WB is going to do going forward is that Marvel obviously has a formula, and when they plug in superhero A into plot B, and they get movie C. What Warner Brothers is now doing is that they see the success of Joker, and they're like, "Oh, you're right. It's Taxi Driver meets the Joker. So now we're going to make Batman is 7 meets Zodiac, and now the Wonder Woman is going to be whatever Thelma meets Louise.
Yeah, right. You know,
And that is their plan, and that plan is going to get really boring really fast.
and this is what I said. It's all about these people, and it's not about the property. I'm sorry, you are the custodian of someone else's property. You need to respect that. When you get it's mine now, fuck you. You didn't create that. You are not
I
the
hate
originator.
I hate to say this, but I think a lot of them have that impression like this is ours now. We can do with it what we want, and we don't even have to pay attention to what came
Yeah.
before.
And I would be fine with that if it really was theirs, but it's not. They did not create it. Go make your own version of 7 meets Zodiac.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, and honestly, from all that I've heard, for all the shit that we give Ryan Johnson, I've heard that Knives Out was a good movie. Make your own damn shit and don't fuck up someone else's, because I'll never see a movie of his because of the shit he pulled. But if he never did Star Wars, I might be a huge fan.
Yeah.
You know, I do want to comment on Leia Plus Size's comment here. She says she agrees with the race swapping. It was not needed to make the film work. I think race swapping does not benefit anything. Let me tell you something. It is not for the representation that everyone thinks it's for. It's not even for the virtue signaling. It is now a Hollywood mandate.
Yeah,
they must do it to get their movie made. The only way you can get a movie made is if there's a certain number of this kind of character, a certain number of that. It is literally affirmative action in Hollywood right now. And that is killing these films. And they're starting to see that. The other thing, I've heard Leia Plus Size talk about this. Wolf 10 Media has talked about this. It's tokenization. When you take a historically white character and make them some other ethnicity, whether it's black or something else, when you shoehorn in a gay character, you know, like they did with the original Green Lantern and so forth.
Or the Q in the latest Bond movie, the insinuations there.
Okay, there you go. You are tokenizing, right? You're saying you as a black person or as a gay person or as a woman, nobody cares enough about you unless we steal a character from a white man and cast you in it. Okay. When I at least applaud the fact that there was a Steel movie, unfortunately, in order to get it made, you know, it had to be self-promoted and it was low budget and it ended up kind of sucking. But can you imagine if they made Steel today the way they made Iron Man?
Yeah.
What kind of a character that would be?
Oh, absolutely.
But they're not going to do that because they don't really care about that representation. They care about tokenizing.
Yeah. When I think about the lost opportunity of Batman versus Superman, it just breaks my heart. They shoved everything into that movie. The Dark Knight Returns, the death of Superman, shoving in every other Justice League that they had. The death of Superman should have been like it was in the comics. The death of Superman resurrected Superman comics by not having Superman in them and made them go off and do separate, different creative storylines without Superman. Well, and that's what the movie should have done. And they too cowardly.
What's very unfair. As long as you brought it up, I'm going to talk about very briefly the death of Superman. Everyone looks at that as a commercial stunt, right? Oh, they killed off Superman. It was a big media thing, and they sold a bunch of comics. They knew they were just going to bring him back. But it's kind of unfair because the death of Superman and what it brought to all those characters and what it brought to him as a character was actually unintentional.
Yes.
Originally, it was a stalling tactic. they were trying to line up Lois and Clark in the TV show and in the comics. They were trying to bring them into line in what I think is brilliant, which is kind of what I've been saying DC has needed to do all along, is build the synergy between your comics and your movies and your TV shows and all of that, right? And that's what they were doing at the time. And what they wanted was to not have, it wasn't about the death of Superman. It was about the marriage of Clark and Lois, right? They wanted to line up the marriage on TV with the marriage in the comics and have them at the same time. You know, you are cordially invited kind of a thing. But they had to come up with basically a year of hurry up and wait in the comics. They needed to stall that storyline. So they, you know, in the boardroom, they were talking and they said, well, what can we do? And someone kind of half joking said, oh, we can kill off Superman. You know, that would stall things. And they all kind of looked and they're like, yeah, that's a great way to put it on hold. Take Superman out of his own story for a year, focus on other characters that we could maybe create new titles for. It was a financial thing too, right? Because what did they get out of it? They focused on a new Supergirl who had been missing since Crisis, and they still wanted to sell that character on lunch boxes and stickers and, you know, notebooks and whatnot. A Superboy, there was a whole lawsuit involving Superman, Superboy, all that. So they wanted a new Superboy for reasons. Steel, who was an original character that brought real representation, right? And they wanted to deal with some lore aspects in the Eradicator, which in the comics was basically that green crystal from the Donner films made sentient. You know, very interesting stuff. And you're right. I think it was a big success by accident. That wasn't what they were going for, but it ended up working on a lot of fronts.
So many creative things are by accident.
And John Henry Irons?
Yeah, great character.
Great character. I want to see more of that character.
Yes. Completely agree. And
oh my gosh, I'm a white guy.
Yeah.
I want to see this black character. Why? Because he's a good character. Yeah, I know. Do mom and dad know? What was that? See no evil, hear no evil?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
You do know you're black, right? I am? Yeah, do mom and dad know?
Yes.
Or Steve Martin and the Jerk. You mean I'm going to
stay this color? Yeah, exactly. You know?
So, but one of the things I had a problem with the whole Batman versus Superman and Superman dying is that, oh, the world's mourning the death of Superman. I'm like, no, they were, because he was like going to be put on trial, and like people either hated him or they looked at him as some weird godlike figure, and it was like there was no normal
been the biggest problem
relation between the public and Superman. They didn't have that in those movies.
I've said the Snyderverse has been defined by putting the cart in front of the horse. Right? It's telling the end story when you haven't told the setup at all. Yeah. You can see it very clearly with the Suicide Squad, right? And I've said this many times. The idea behind the Suicide Squad is it's a bunch of villains that have been villains for a long time to the superheroes, put in prison and being given an option by the government. Hey, look, you're superpowered individuals. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. This is an opportunity to serve your country, do some good in the world, reform, probably die in the process. But if you survive, we'll wipe the slate for you. It's a brilliant idea. And this was a bunch of B-list villain characters that fans of those heroes knew. Okay, fans of the Flash knew who Captain Boomerang was.
Right.
You know, I mean, and fans of Aquaman and actually a couple other DC characters knew who that shark character was. I'm actually forgetting
King
his name.
Shark.
Yeah, right, exactly. All of these villain characters, right? But they didn't take the time to tell those stories. We didn't get to know those characters as villains first. They didn't do a Flash. There hasn't even been a Flash movie yet, let alone a Flash movie where Captain Boomerang was the villain.
Yeah.
So
I think they killed off Captain Boomerang in the last
I
Suicide
think you're
Squad
right.
movie, so
think
he
you're
can't be in a Flash movie now.
Well, and the thing about Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse, is Zack Snyder has said what he's more interested in is telling the anti-hero story. Which
then you shouldn't be
perfect
doing
for
DC. You
Suicide
should be
Squad.
over on the Marvel side.
Yeah. First, I would tell Warner Brothers and DC, tell me a hero story. Don't start out with the anti-hero. Tell me the hero story before you start deconstructing the hero. Zack Snyder can go ahead and do the Suicide Squad. He should not have been doing Superman. Man of Steel still, as much as I don't like Batman, Superman, and everything else. The most disappointing movie for me is still Man of Steel.
Oh, I remember seeing that in the theater.
There's the other problem. You did point out the whole death of Superman. Again, that's putting the cart in front of the horse. Nobody cared about Superman. He wasn't the big hero yet, right? We didn't have 3 movies establishing him as a beloved hero before he's killed, right?
The death of Superman should have been DC's Endgame.
Right, exactly. And by the same token, Batman versus Superman was taken directly from The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller thing. That is...
Why are you telling me that story with the first one that he's in there? Why are you telling that?
The reason that story was so powerful was because we have had decades of Batman and Superman being friends. And now, because of the way things have gone, they find themselves at odds with each other.
Well, that was Frank Miller looking at both of these characters and suddenly, and as he said, suddenly realizing these two guys wouldn't be friends. They wouldn't like each other. They're complete opposites. They maybe both consider themselves heroes, but they don't consider the other one a hero.
But that is because Frank Miller decided that and created that scenario.
Yes.
Whereas you look at how, for example, John Byrne dealt with it, right? You saw that they disagreed on things, but they also were able to see each other's point of view.
Yeah.
Right? Because
they were able to cooperate.
Bruce really rips into Clark saying, if I had your powers, I'd clean up crime in Gotham City and it would be, there would be no crime. He said, so you turn it into a dictatorship. And that caused him to stop and think, right? He said, and you'd only focus on Gotham? I have to worry about the whole world because of the level of power that I have. And both of them were like, oh, different circumstance. We do see the world differently. We both pretty much do agree on, the important points, but we have to deal with things differently because we're different people. And they had that respect for each other. And you're absolutely right. You do see it in the Justice League, right? Where Superman is brilliant, right? He's got a super mind too, but he relies on Bruce because, as the Bible says, many advisors make victory assured, right? What does Wonder Woman bring to it? She brings a couple things. She's got the same basic power set as Superman, but she's got a feminine compassion. Superman's very compassionate, but sometimes Wonder Woman sees things differently. I got to tell you something. This world that we live in that thinks you can just swap man and woman, male, female, it's all the same thing. It's not true. There's a yin and yang that exists. Any heterosexual couple that is in a long-term relationship, a successfully married couple understands that there's a reason that you have a partner in life because they bring something to you that you lack. And I see that in the teamwork of Superman and Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I kind of look at it. Superman will come in, and when there's a situation, he will save the day and
Yep.
fly off. Wonder Woman will save the day, and then she'll come to you, put her arms around you, and say it's going to be all right.
Right.
There's an emotional well-being component to that feminine side,
And
that
Superman is entirely
doesn't have.
capable of that, but that's not his primary function. You know, I think about that story. I don't remember who wrote it or which comic it comes from, where he's helping the girl out who's thinking of taking her own life, right?
Right.
And he literally doesn't. He uses some superpowers in that, but it's just because he can. It's not necessary to the story, right? Just being there for her and not forcing her to come down off that building safely, talking her down. He's showing his compassion, right there. And the fact is, we've seen it with Batman, right? We see it in Batman the Animated Series where he's sitting with that girl on the swing set who's dying.
Right. Yeah. Great episode.
And all he does is he sits there with her until she dies.
Mhm.
That's tough, especially for Batman. But you know, they all you can't be a superhero without compassion. But everyone is compassionate at different times in different ways for different reasons, and they all come to the Justice League with their strengths. Right? It's not just Batman and flying Batman and female Batman and super fast Batman and aquatic Batman. They all have different qualities because they're all heroes, right? I mean, you see it with Superman. Superman is a great leader, right? He's a pretty good tactician, but maybe Diana is a better tactician in a warrior's point of view. And maybe Bruce is a better tactician when it comes to planning out contingencies, because he's got a contingency for everything, right? They all have their skills and they work well as a team because of it, right? That was never played up in the Snyderverse. You never got any of that. You never got the friendship. You never got the mutual respect. You certainly didn't in the first movie. In the second movie, suddenly everyone cares about each other for no reason that you've seen.
I have a.
Well, the script told them they had to, Troy. What aren't you getting about this?
No, I get that.
Sounds like it's a you problem.
And don't get me wrong, I kind of get that too from, I've said this about the prequels too. I feel like the 3 films in the Star Wars prequels, there's a lot missing in between those. Yeah. But if you watch the Clone Wars, you get it. And you go, oh, this is a way better war story, right? You know, you get the relationship.
Somebody needed some help writing that stuff. Yeah. Although they still look like Hamlet compared to the sequels.
Well, that's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. No, they're not perfect, but they're good. They are good. And I'm just saying that that's exactly the kind of stuff that I'm talking about with the DC universe. I think we really need to.
They need to let these things breathe. They rush into all of this. They're, hey, Death of Superman. Hey, Dark Knight Returns. Hey, we got all this stuff. Let's shove it all in there because it's what the fans want. And it's going to get us our $1 billion movie.
Well,
and it's not. That's not it. The first Iron Man. You go back and watch that. It looks slow compared to the movies that are today. But the character of Tony Stark comes out so much better.
Yeah.
Let Batman breathe.
Why I think they did the whole let's combine the Death of Superman and also the Batman versus Superman is that Hollywood had both of those projects rolling around for years before even the Snyderverse came about. I heard people talking about this, I think, in the 90s. They wanted to do a Batman versus Superman movie, and they also wanted to do I think Jay Leno was making a joke about it. Is like, well, Superman is Superman, and Batman's a guy that works out a lot. Like, how's that a match? but I often think that the producers over there, they get these ideas in their heads and they won't let them go, and that's why we ended up getting stuck with this. That might be one of the reasons we got stuck with this mishmash, and they decided, hey, let's just do Death of Return. Death of Superman and Batman versus Superman in the same movie, because I think that the Nick Cage Superman movie, the Burton project, was supposed to be the Death of Superman originally,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
And the Death of Superman works if it comes at the end of a series of films.
Right.
And again, like I said, the Batman versus Superman doesn't work unless they have that mutual respect and many years of friendship. Again, going back to the humility of Superman, right? And keeping limits on himself. John Byrne did something I thought that was really brilliant, where after discovering that kryptonite was something that could kill him and that it was a weakness, instead of destroying that piece of kryptonite, he gave it to Batman. And Batman said, "Why are you giving this to me?" He said, "Because I want to know that if anything ever happens and I need to be put in my place, someone that I can trust has that ability." And that was a great testimony to who Clark was, and led to some great stories going forward. Um, and it even comes up in the Frank Miller story, where I think it was the president or something like that goes to Batman and says, "You have the no. I'm sorry, it wasn't Frank Miller. There was a year called there was a year where they were doing a bunch of cross title annuals that dealt with alternate future storylines, kind of like Elseworlds. It was called Armageddon 2000. The storyline was that there was this one of the superheroes from today ends up becoming a superpowered dictator in the future, and he kills all the rest of the superheroes. So he's the only one. And the problem is that nobody knows what his identity is. He's put on like a Darth Vader type costume, taking a new identity. So it could be anyone, from history. So this time traveler called Wave Rider comes back in time to try and find out which of the he's got this time ability where he can touch somebody and see their most logical future. And it was really just a convention by which they could look at different alternate futures for each character in each one of their annuals. Now, with Batman and Superman, they had 3 titles each. So there had to be a different story for each one. And I think with Batman, they looked at different aspects of Batman or different characters within the Batman family. With Superman, they did something very clever. They had Action Comics, they had Man of Steel, and they had The Adventures of Superman, right? 3 different titles. And in each one, when Wave Rider would look at would touch Superman and we would see what he sees, that story. At the end of the story, Superman had this unique ability to know. He didn't like waking up from a dream. You have this subconscious recollection, not like he remembered the event, but he had this tickling sensation of something. So, for example, one of the events was very much inspired by The Dark Knight Returns. Superman in the very near future experiences the destruction of Metropolis. It's destroyed by a terrorist organization, nuclear bomb. It kills Perry White. It kills, everyone at the Daily Planet, including Lois Lane, right? And Superman just snaps. And he does the whole Superman 4 thing where he takes away all of the nuclear weapons from all the world and he establishes dictatorial control over everything, right? And the president goes to Batman and says, "We know that you have the ability to stop Superman. You need to do this." And Batman says, "No, I agree with what he's doing. He should have done this a long time ago, in my opinion." And the only way they can get him to do it is they find proof, and I think they fabricate the proof. They leave that ambiguous, that in sinking a nuclear sub, he ends up killing two sailors doing it. And Batman says, okay, yeah, maybe we need to stop him. But I'm not, and his intent isn't to kill him, but it becomes the Dark Knight situation. He's using the kryptonite and so forth to stop. And he ends up unfortunately killing Superman, right? So Wave Rider's like, well, he does become a dictator, but he's not the same one that I'm looking for. And clearly this situation resolves itself. And Superman realizes something's wrong, and he takes off to Metropolis and stops the bomb. Yeah. Just as a side note, in one of the other stories, he has a future where Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack, as we know he's going to anyway. And he has that moment in the comics, all these powers that I have, and I couldn't even save him. But if my life had taken a different course, maybe I could have. So he stops doing the Superman thing, and he starts dedicating himself to science. And he finds cures for heart disease and cancer and so on and so forth. And then he runs for president, and he, tries to bring about world peace through, legal means and so forth. And he does a lot of good things in the world. And Wave Rider's like, well, that's the opposite of being a dictator. He does some really good things in the world. And Clark realizes something's wrong with his father, and he flies off to Smallville right away. His father's having a heart attack, and he rushes him to the hospital and saves him. I mean, some really good storytelling, These comics have some great stories in them. And I know I've just spoiled these, 30-year-old stories, but my gosh, tell me you wouldn't love to see these, even knowing these stories and how they end. You wouldn't love to see them turned into
Sure.
movies.
I mean,
yeah. Well, honestly, that's why the DC animated films, they're the ones that are probably doing well and doing the best, is because they take the time to tell these stories. They do let these things go and breathe and be able to tell more character-driven stories about superheroes. And much that may be my, now that I think about it, may be my single best piece of advice to WB: look to your animated series and look to your animated movies.
This is the biggest problem that I see with all of these franchise things. Everybody wants to blame, you're all istophobes and you hate women, you hate people of color and this and that. No, that's not it. It's you've decided to change the stories to accommodate those things. We care about the stories.
Yeah.
We don't care if you want to put gay characters in or have, heroic people of color or different genders or whatever. Those characters exist in the comics. Tell those stories by all means.
Yeah.
This is why you don't change canon to do it.
This is why I do that. This is why I'm on streams with you guys. I do this because it's out of love. I love these characters. I love comics. I love the storytelling medium of comics, and I see how well creators have done over the decades of creating great stories. Not all of them succeed, but you can go to the best ones and you can put those on screen if you love them as much as the people who created them and the people who read them do. And that's what I want to see. I don't want to say Batman was too long. I don't want to say that.
Right.
I don't want to say that Catwoman is a charisma suck. That bothers me. I want to see them care and create something that is as great as that I want it, that I love. That's what I want. That's what you guys want to do.
The other problem is this very short-sighted financial aspect, right?
Yeah.
Where you have great expanded universe stories for Star Wars. You have all these comic stories. You have all of this, and they don't want to use those stories because then they would have to pay the people that wrote those stories or that created those characters or whatever the case is. And that's fine. Fine. Go ahead and do your own thing. And nobody's going to like it, and you make no money on it. You don't have to share it with anybody, but you get to share nothing with nobody, as opposed to making a butt ton of money and then maybe having to share some of it with somebody.
Yeah. What I can't even imagine what is the sum total of the royalties they would have to pay to use the old Superman, or whatever character that they've changed with the new 52, and then after that, and those were all financial reasons. Those weren't, or what Disney is not paying the Star Wars,
and that's a great example, right?
Much.
They don't want to pay out to the families of Siegel and Schuster, so they create a new Superboy and they do the new 52 and they change things around and unfortunately becomes a liability. Nobody bought those. The new 52 was a failure. I'm sorry, you can try to spin it however you want, but people stopped buying
they
comics.
keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so congratulations, you don't have to pay that money to the Siegel and Schuster families, but you don't have any money to pay anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're going broke, you know? Yeah. And I think we're seeing that a company, specifically Lucasfilm, is realizing that. As you watch things like The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, and then the announcement that they're planning to do something with Heir to the Empire, they're realizing the money is in recanonizing that EU stuff that people loved. There's a reason that we had the what are they called? The dark troopers, you know, from
Rogue One.
No.
What are you thinking of?
In Mandalorian, they had the dark troopers that were robot stormtroopers. That comes from the video games, you know. But you're right, Rogue One to a certain degree. You know, there's been the canonization of, and let's face it, all the stuff from Clone Wars, all the stuff from Rebels, that's clearly canon. You know, it was ambiguous. Now it's clearly canon. And the toys, and this is brilliant from the marketing standpoint. So you have a version of Ahsoka that's a cartoon action figure, and now we're getting a live action version. And you're getting a, you know, Commander Cody that was a cartoon version, and now they're going to be able to do a Cody that's live action. And they're doing both. You get a live action and a cartoon version of Obi-Wan. So you just doubled your toys. It's brilliant, you know? And they're not at this point, they're not afraid to pay out. They're clearly going to have to pay Timothy Zahn when they do something with Heir to the Empire. It's going to happen. And I think Disney is going, yeah, we don't have a problem with that. We'll do whatever we have to do, because that whole sequel trilogy thing that was a nightmare. You know, that would
have been the perfect sequel trilogy to do. Would have been the Thrawn series.
And look at Marvel from the beginning. Marvel Studios has been taking classic comic stories, they're altering it a little bit, but most of that altering is to streamline years of comics down. You have to, right? Nobody has put that kind of effort into, you know, you could say that they took the classic origins for these characters and they, you know, took the Infinity Gauntlet saga, and now they're starting to adapt the Secret Wars.
Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion, you know, storyline and turning those into movies. Brilliant. You know, they're going to have to acknowledge the creators of those story ideas and the characters involved and so forth. But they're going, well, if that makes us money, that's great. Whereas over on the DC side, they're taking inspiration from them, but they're not actually telling those stories. They're basically taking the Dark Knight Returns and the Death of Superman and all those stories, and they're just throwing them in a blender, hitting what the fuck, and you get a slurry of story that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Did they take from Long Halloween for the Batman, or was that something else?
Long Halloween inspired a great deal of the Nolan
okay,
Batman.
right, okay.
But my understanding is that it also was a big inspiration for this new Batman movie too.
Yeah, there are a lot of aspects of that in the Batman.
And that's good, but that also means you kind of need to lay your foundation. That is a foundational story, right? That story is, it's not exactly Batman year one, but it's early Batman, setting up villains, setting up the change from organized crime to these psychopaths that end up taking over Gotham, and and so forth. The Lieutenant Gordon becoming, eventually Commissioner Gordon, and so forth. Yeah. So again, I guess I've said this a lot of different ways, but I think the summation is they need to plan out their stories. There's got to be a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And DC
here's,
doesn't seem to be able to do that.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that if Warner Brothers wants to do something different, you don't have to copy Marvel. You don't have to have the same game plan they do. Maybe what their competitive advantage is that they don't have a shared universe. They have a Nolan trilogy that stands on its own and will forever. They're not going back to that universe anytime soon.
Yeah.
And maybe you attract top tier talents to play Superman for a trilogy or Wonder Woman for a trilogy, and then that they're just their own self-contained stories, and then you could have your billion-dollar movies, but they're not in a shared universe.
The problem with that, though, is that we're talking about characters with so much history. There are so many stories to tell. If you limit yourself to a trilogy, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, that's just it, is that you could have your Jason Momoa Aquaman trilogy, and then you wait a few years after that, and you get a new actor and a new director and a new vision, a new aesthetic for that. And then you can do something different.
I also think that up until now, let's be blunt, they haven't seemed to like doing a shared universe. Like,
no, they're not committing.
They're not committing to anything. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: like they'll tease like having Superman have a cameo in Shazam, but it doesn't happen. Like you'll see him from like the neck down, so it's not even like we're getting Henry Cavill popping in a Shazam movie, and it's.
In a way, I kind of like it the way it was back during, the late 80s, early 90s. This idea where you get just a dropped line that implies that there is a shared
like the James Bond universe.
Right. Or specifically what I'm thinking of is there's a line in I think it's Batman Forever. Yeah, Batman Forever, when he's talking to Robin or, Dick Grayson, and he says, the circus is probably halfway to Metropolis by now. Just that one line establishes that there is a Metropolis in the same universe as Gotham, implying that there is a Superman as well as Batman.
Right.
But you don't get Batman and Superman in the same movie together, right?
Right. So what you're saying is you would still have other aspects of the DC universe be mentioned in a Batman movie, but mainly focus on on Batman instead of having. They did a
lot of that in Smallville. In fact, there was before Clark actually gets a job at the Daily Planet. No, maybe I'm thinking this wrong. It wasn't that. There was a scene where some minor character was at, I don't remember if he was at a hospital or something, and he was bringing around reading materials to either patients or inmates or something. I don't remember what it was. And one of the things that was on his reading cart was a Daily Planet newspaper that was talking about the ambassador from Themyscira coming to Washington. That's a Wonder Woman nod.
Yeah.
In the very first episode, Lionel Luthor's reading, I think it was the Daily Planet, and it talks about the founder of Queen Industries missing in a boating accident. Well, that ends up being paid off later on when they bring Oliver Queen in, and it talks about the accident and his father, and mother being killed in the boating accident. He survived, he inherited everything while he was trying to survive on the island. He learns these archery skills and so forth.
Yeah.
But just sometimes it's just an Easter egg is all it takes.
Do you know what this almost reminds me of? When DC was doing their original made-for-video animated movies, they were trying to base them off of different eras in the comics, like they did like Superman Doomsday, which is about the death and return of Superman, and then they'd have something else. They would, but they didn't really connect these movies to each other usually, and they were like these standalone stories. And I always thought it was interesting that they're gonna cut out the fluff. Like you can, like for instance, you can actually have like the evil Superman in this story drop Toy Man from like high up in the air and kill him, because you don't have to worry about seeing that Toyman again because it's a self-contained movie. So it's sort of like its own self-contained little universe there. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
But that's really the big problem that I see with, and it's, I do call it a Batman problem, and I've outlined that, but it's more than that. They just have a writing problem. They have a vision problem.
Can I ask each of you a question? If you were to do a Batman movie, which villain would you use? Because we started the stream talking about how they always go with the same old standbys.
I think if I was to start it out, I would probably do it like, I would probably do it in a similar way to the first Nolan film, except I probably wouldn't put in like a super villain. I think it would be all crime bosses, muggers, the basic stuff, right? He's literally, just street level, not a superhero, just the vigilante, the Batman year one thing, right? And then the second movie, I would introduce. Second movie, I think I'd probably make the origin story for the Joker. The whole Red Hood thing. Where he literally is responsible for the creation of the Joker. But at the same time, not giving too much of his origin. It doesn't have to be the comedian down on his luck, roped into working with the mob or whatever. Batman doesn't know who he is or where he came from or any of that backstory, just, he thought he had accidentally been responsible for the death of somebody, only to find out he wasn't, but he was responsible for the creation of something worse. That would make for a great story, right? And then you start to see the creep into, away from organized crime, into, these lunatics, that are behind most of the crime in Gotham, and Batman realizing the game's changed, and now I am the only one who can deal with these things. Now it's not just a vigilante doing the things that a corrupt police force won't do. It's a specialized individual dealing with psychopaths that the regular police force is not prepared to deal with.
Yeah. And the Batman kind of implies the Court of Owls too, that there's this overall arching thing. I like that idea, and that's probably something that if I were doing this, Batman wouldn't fight a supervillain in the first one. It would be Maroni or
Yep.
the crime bosses. But one of the interesting things that I always thought was about Batman is the supervillains that come up. Are they a response to Batman, or is Batman a response to the worsening of Gotham? And that's something that I would leave ambiguous. I wouldn't answer that question. So all of a sudden, he's fighting the crime bosses. So and maybe you have Penguin in that first one. Maybe Penguin is a part of that. But the second one, you have a more outright weird villain. So you have Two-Face, or you have the Riddler. And I don't only have one. I'm a big believer that you only have
Again, I think Nolan did a great job with Two-Face, because he becomes that representation of the going from, the corruption of the average mobster criminal in Gotham to something else, something, more psychopathic. And this idea that you have the one uncorruptible, district attorney, right, being warped by what Gotham is. It really is that whole focus on Gotham as a character in a way, right? I do love Leia Plus Size bringing up Clayface. He's never been done in live action, and he totally could be. That is a huge missed opportunity, especially in this post Terminator 2 era of CG.
Yep.
Right? Where you could do some, and let's face it, the animated series has done some great takes on Clayface.
Yeah.
Some tragic takes on Clayface.
Yeah, and the Batman outright almost said that Hush is going to be a villain. I mean, they clearly have the character in there that and at one point the character writes something down, and it's Hush, says Hush, and it's like, okay, yeah, Hush is.
I have to wonder. So now, focusing specifically on the Batman, are we getting a sequel? Before you answer that,
I'm sorry.
Before you answer that, hold on. Couple things to keep in mind. It did very well, right? But as Valiant Renegade pointed out, adjusted for inflation, it really didn't do as well as some of the other Batman films. It is kind of divided the fan base, because there's still a lot of Snyder bots out there that want to focus on the whole Snyder universe. Plus, you have to keep in mind that you still have the Snyderverse limping along with Aquaman and Flash and Wonder Woman, right? So what do you do with that? And finally, with all the delays, with all the problems in production on the Batman, I don't think it made the money it needed to make to be the success they needed it to be. People, keep in mind, we talk about this all the time. Valiant Renegade talks about it a lot, that whatever you see at the box office, they probably spent whatever their budget is, plus at least 2 times that in marketing. And this movie was already going into debt in the hole because of how far it got pushed off and all of the added footage they needed to film.
Mm-hmm. I think if you look back at the Nolan trilogy, I mean, the first Batman Begins was not a major success. It was not something that was like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to continue in this. But they learned what they needed to do for a second one, what they needed to add and what they needed to subtract, and that's when you get the Dark Knight. And I think that there has been enough complaints about the movie being too dark, too depressing. I think there have been a lot of complaints about how long it was, and the story going off the rails in the last hour.
That's my biggest.
That's what I think they're going to do a second one, but it will be closer to 2 hours and 15 minutes.
In the putting aside all the canon issues I have with it and all the messaging that I have a problem with and the race swapping and all the other things, that in and of itself is a problem. that is a lack of discipline in storytelling.
Mhm.
If you can't tell your story in 2 hours, you need to rethink your story.
Right.
And it sounds to all the world like it wasn't, oh, this was such a good 3-hour movie. This is an epic, like, the
Lord of the Rings or something.
yeah, or the Bible or Gone with the Wind or whatever, where 3 hours is appropriate, no, this was a good 2-hour movie that they stretched out to 3 hours, and the last hour of it was apparently
Setting
a
up
mess.
TV shows.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, they've already announced that they're doing a Penguin HBO Max show.
What?
So
Yes.
yeah, so they
Oh.
but I think that they've got what they want out of that 3 hours of the first one. I think
Mhm.
Matt Reeves is going to be able to go back and cut out a lot of the fat and a lot of the stuff that was unnecessary.
And you think we'll get
we will get a
new
much
cut of it or something?
leaner, direct sequel, much like the Dark Knight is clearly a much closer vision of what Christopher Nolan would do than Batman Begins.
Probably.
I can see that happening. So I do believe that they will do a sequel. I don't think that this was so bad or so terrible that you just give up on it, like they did with Superman. I mean, they were planning on doing a Man of Steel 2, and they just completely chucked that.
Yeah, I think that, and it's not. This Batman film doesn't exist in a vacuum. Is all I'm saying. I think
Right.
they still got to figure out their shit with their whether or not the Snyderverse is
Yeah.
continuing and all that stuff.
I think that they are moving more toward the Joker, the Batman model, and they're going to milk out Wonder Woman and Aquaman for as much as they can. But I think that their focus is now going to be about the mishmash of making Batman 7, Joker Taxi Driver, and they're going to make, Superman, It's a Wonderful Life or something.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we're all just speculating, and we just have to see where it actually does go. I think all we've really done is, I think we can agree that there's a lot of problems that they need to address, and we just have to wait and see how they do
there are a lot
address
of
them.
solutions for them too. They have options. They have good options.
They do,
and they just need to be able to take advantage of it. And they need to hire the three of us for half the price of Christopher Nolan, and we'll fix it for them.
Actually, they don't even need to hire me. They just need to listen to me.
Yeah.
And I will tell them, you already have the stories. Just get someone who can adapt them well.
Yeah.
And actually, who, this is going to sound antithetical to everything that we've said. The one who's really good at taking stories and translating them to film is Zack Snyder. The problem is Zack Snyder is terrible about deciding which stories to translate. So what you need is some kind of not Kevin Feige. What's his name? John Favreau type, who can say, you know what? We need to adapt this comic book and this comic book and this comic book in that order. Here, Zack Snyder, turn these into movies.
Yeah, don't shove all three of them into one movie.
And then he comes back and does some editing on it and goes, no, that next snap, screw that. That's not happening. No.
To be fair, Justice League was taken from him, and that in no way was his fault. But Batman,
and I will argue this too, for everyone who says the Snyder cut is so much better with all the re-added footage and changing edits and stuff like that. I'm going to say maybe it was better, but I still don't believe it was what he originally intended.
Yeah.
I think it's just like the Donner cut. It's as close as they could get.
Yeah.
But it's still not exactly what he had originally planned.
The Snyder cut is definitely better than the Whedon cut, but sure. I still don't say it's a great movie. It's a serviceable movie. It's maybe good in places, but it's not great.
Nope.
And there are Marvel movies that are great.
It's going to be a while before we see anything really good come in, a broad sense from DC.
I get
And Marvel better get their head out of their asses. We'll see
Marvel
if they
now
do
has
or
a
not.
formula, and look, even these Phase 4 movies are doing pretty well for them.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to put in the work that they had to do in Phase 1 and 2.
Yeah. They they can make improvements without a great deal of effort. So Marvel's in a much better place.
This Phase 4 is obvious. I think it's just coasting.
Yep.
I mean, I get the feeling that they had fun with the Spider-Man movie, that was fun for them, and I think that translated to fun for the audience.
Yep.
But that movie can't be a template. But I think that they're trying to make it a template with the new Doctor Strange. But it's
and that's another
Spider-Man
one I
movie
think
should
we're
be a
just going to have to
one-shot.
wait and see.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping that once they get to the Fantastic Four and then eventually the X-Men, that it will reinvigorate their creative juices. I hope so, because like I said, I want to love this stuff. I want to see
I agree.
great
I agree.
films. I don't like to badmouth them.
So these are things we got to wait for and we can only speculate on. Let's look at some things that we know is coming up. So tomorrow night over on
Big
Al
Al.
Presents, Age of Boomer, you'll be joining us.
Yes, for Tremors.
For a rewatch of Tremors, and we can talk about how many degrees of separation we are from Kevin Bacon.
3.
Yes, Netter is 3 away from Kevin Bacon, because she actually has appeared in movies. And Sunday, of course, over on Age of Boomer's channel, link in the description.
Yes, we'll be doing Geeky Geezers.
Absolutely, which is what got us started tonight.
Oh.
Which, by the way, I am 1 separation from bacon, because I'm having that for breakfast tomorrow morning.
There you go. I kind of like the way you look at it.
We're gonna be talking about the whole Disney situation over there. Oh, I'm getting a headache just thinking
weird.
about it.
That just seems messed up.
It's an abyss, but we'll talk about it on Sunday.
Tuesday over on Mr. Matchstick's channel.
Oh, Culture Fortress.
Culture Fortress.
Yes.
Where I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
But I'll if I have a topic for that.
You know what you should talk about? Strawberry shortcake. She has been
very little about strawberry shortcake. The only thing I remember about strawberry shortcake was my brother had the video game for it for the Atari 2600.
What?
And yes,
that existed.
It did. And really all it was all the different characters. You know those puzzles where you've got the characters and you have their tops, their middles, and their bottoms.
Yeah,
and you can slide them to make different characters. It was the same thing. But not only would you change the head, the body, and the feet, but they had like a tune for each one of them. You know, Strawberry Shortcake had her tune, and the Blueberry Kid and the other ones and the bad guy, they all had different tunes. So you'd get like the beginning of one song, the middle of someone else, and you could mix and match. And it was just kind of fun. And I actually remember those. I can actually hear those tunes in my mind. I really enjoyed those. So that's it. I just told you everything I know about Strawberry Shortcake. But yeah, I like Strawberry Shortcake. You know, KFC used to have these little parfaits that had a strawberry shortcake parfait.
Weren't those the ones? I think my cousin, I had some girl cousins, and the dolls smelled like strawberries and blueberries.
That's right. I remember that too. I remember the girls bringing those toys in and smelling their toys. That just does not sound right. Let's change the subject really quick. So Wednesday over on Soundtracks with Birdman.
Yes.
Doing a rewatch?
I will not be there, but Big Al will be on there with him. They are going to be talking about the Battlestar. They'll be doing a couple of selected episodes from Battlestar Galactica. We'll be talking about the music there.
There you go.
Battlestar Galactica fans here.
Don't think there's anything going on Thursday. That brings us around to Friday. And as usual, I have no idea what I'll be doing next week, but I'll come up with something.
Okay.
Okay. Have I missed anything, Z-Topia? Do you have anything coming up? Are you anything?
No, I mean, I enjoy being a guest, and whenever you guys need me for anything, topics that are coming up that you want me to pontificate on and share my views, I am always happy to do that.
Right,
Well,
right.
thank you. I'll keep you in mind.
And if you really enjoyed this topic tonight, again, links in the description for the MeWe group, where we are constantly talking about how we would change, alter, or reimagine the DC cinematic universe to make it a little bit more interesting to everybody.
Don't forget to donate to.
Yep, I was getting to that too, and also the link in the description. Please, if you have any spare money at all, if you have it on your heart to help a YouTuber in terrible need, I've got the Give Send Go down below for Rambling Canuck. Please, anything you can do, even if all you can do is share out that link on your social media and try to get some help for him. Really greatly appreciate it. Okay. That's all I had. Any last words from you guys?
Just thank you for having me on again. It was a pleasure to be able to talk to you again about this, and thank you.
Okay.
Yep. And I super appreciate every single one of you. The fact that we got like into double digits today and you guys hung around throughout the discussion just means, maybe there's some value to what I'm doing here. And frankly, I just like hanging out with you guys. So
cool.
Thanks again, everyone.
No
No bots today. I don't know what brings the bots and what doesn't, but no bots today, which is a good thing. Anyway, take care, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Good night, ladies. Good night, sir. Hit it, sweetheart.